Wars Reborn just came out this Tuesday, and it's a novel that takes place right after The Last Jedi and shows how the Resistance is building up to take on the First Order in The Rise of Skywalker.
You're fulfilling your destiny.
Before I get into spoilers, just in case you don't want them, if you want to read this book, it'll take about, I'd say 3 to 5 hours, depending on your reading speed. It's about 320 pages. It's not the worst Star Wars book. It's definitely not the best. I would say it's more on the good side if I were to rank it. So not the best, but still good. So if you're interested in figuring out how the Resistance got more fighters, how they got more starships, how they got leadership, how they basically built up their supplies to take on the First Order in Episode 9, you may want to read this book. Because we know at the end of The Last Jedi, the Resistance was like nothing. 12 people on the Falcon. Bad. And a few squadrons out there. Interestingly, this book doesn't really feature Rey that much. She is in the book, but there's nothing really centering on her. In fact, she stays behind from the main mission. So if you were hoping for a book that was heavy on Rey, it's actually, I'd say, heaviest towards Poe, if I had to say. But if you're also hoping for it to have Kylo or Hux or any of the big wig First Order people, you're gonna be disappointed. There's no Hux, there's no Kylo, and we do have First Order officers and stormtroopers, but nobody big, or I would think the majority of Star Wars fans would care too much about. That being said, now I'm gonna talk about spoilers. So if you don't want to know some huge spoilers for this book, please abandon ship now. Basically, in this book, the Resistance found some Resistance leadership they wanted in the form of some old rebellion leaders, and they also got more ships and resources on a few missions. They also discovered that the First Order has a list, and on this list they have people that they've already rounded up, but also people that they believe will oppose the First Order or cause any problems for them, and so they're going around either killing or rounding them up. Some have been killed, but others have been put in labor camps because the First Order believes, you know, you can redeem yourself through hard labor, but in reality, in these hard labor camps, most of these people that would cause problems for the First Order die anyways. The First Order is also jamming a lot of communication, so when we look back to Crate in The Last Jedi and Resistance allies weren't answering Leia and her group, it wasn't because they were saying, fuck you, we're done with you. It's because the First Order was already rounding them up, killing them, or blocking communications. The First Order is now really good at blocking Resistance communications, which is not something we only saw in this book, to be fair. We did see it in the other Rise of Skywalker Journey 2 books. The other scary thing is they know exactly who was on Crate and the planet they came from, so those Resistance individuals that fought on Crate, not only does the First Order know exactly who they are, but they know personal information that may put their loved ones in danger. However, it should be noted that being the loved one of someone on the list doesn't necessarily make you a target. The First Order has rounded up people on the list and then left their children or spouses alone, so, but it still puts them in more danger. The Resistance does get a hold of this list, or a copy of the list, at the very end of this novel, and at the end they're splitting up to either go warn the people on the list or rescue those that are held captive by the First Order, and hoping that they will then join the Resistance. They're also spreading out through the galaxy and helping areas that are trying to resist the First Order taking over, and hoping to put little sparks all over the galaxy to burn the First Order down. So besides seeing how the Resistance gathers more resources, including people and ships, we also see the return of some ex-Imperials and also a familiar OT character, Wedge. And if you don't know, Wedge is the stepfather of Snap Wexley, who hopefully is up on the screen to my right or left, who is the son of Nora Wexley. Honestly, Wedge's chapters, the point of view chapters for him, are some of the best. I really enjoyed the Poe ones, of course, but Wedge just... they wrote him so well, and I'm actually I was already excited, but I'm even more excited that he's going to be in episode 9, and I know that Wedge's actor said, I'm not coming back just for a cameo, I'm not coming back just for you to kill me. He's been very resistant against that. Although, on the other hand, maybe they offered him enough money where he was like, I guess I can die. Sure, line my pockets. I don't know. I just know that he was very resistant about coming in just for a cameo or to be killed. I think one of the more emotional moments of this book was when Wedge learned that Luke Skywalker died, and it hit him like a ton of bricks. He just was so emotional about it, and I'm not trying to say anything negative about Lucasfilm under Disney, but it really feels like we should be getting a lot more emotions for the passing of Luke. But I'm not in charge. Going back to the Poe point of views, I think another great part of this novel is we're seeing how Poe is trying to make up for his mistakes in The Last Jedi, though I would argue those weren't necessarily his mistakes and sloppy writing and other leadership issues, but he's taken it really hard, his mutiny, and he's trying to redeem himself, and we're seeing him become more and more the leader of the Resistance, because if you followed Poe's comics and other canon, we know that Leia has been pushing for Poe to become a leader, and she said to him, look, it's not long before I'm a luminous being. I need someone else here who's going to be just not a hero, a leader, and we definitely see this to the point where Poe is giving speeches to the Resistance and Leia is standing back and allowing him to take on the role. And that also makes sense because in the book we see Leia's injuries are pretty extensive. She has not recovered from her adventure in space unprotected, and it really seems like she's starting to slow down, and it's a struggle for her to get up. People have to help her get up, and other people know that she's still recovering, and there's a lot more issues with her. So I could maybe see in episode 9 she succumbs to the injuries that she got while out in space unprotected, and she holds on long enough to make sure that the Resistance has enough leadership and that she isn't needed anymore. Which, on that note, it is really sad being in Leia's head and her thinking about everything she's lost and endured, and she wonders if it was her life to just endure it and suffer, and she thinks that the Force kind of has forced her to stay alive to make sure the light stays, which is kind of shitty if you think about it, but sorry, Leia. You got picked by the Force. So I wouldn't be surprised in episode 9 if we see Poe taking a huge leadership role in the Resistance, and he's actually in charge of the Resistance, and Rey and Finn go through him to figure out where they're going. Oh, by the way, in case you don't know this, the First Order can recognize Poe on sight because he's such a menace and so wanted by them. And his hair's talked about a lot, which got to the point where I was like, okay, this is getting a little weird. Finn honestly felt a little weird in this book and made some really stupid fucking decisions. His dialogue just didn't seem quite synced up, but he is completely 100% into the Resistance now and fucking over the First Order. There's no more doubt, which we saw at the end of The Last Jedi. Also, we see him and Rey being besties, and it is the cutest thing ever. Poe and Finn together was an absolute delight in this book. While they're not together with every mission in the beginning, Poe went to Grail City to help his Black Squadron, which we know through the comics that was a whole thing and why they were away during the evacuation of Dakar and then the whole crate fiasco. But Poe and Finn are together for a good portion of the book, and it's so adorable. I love their bromance, and Finn gets a little emotional telling Poe, I didn't even have a name until you, and Poe tells him later how much he means to him, and it's cute. I love all the besties. If you're wondering about Finn and Rose, in this book they're not together. Poe asks Finn first about Rey, and Finn says, oh no, we're just friends, and then Poe asks about Rose, and he says, no, that was just a moment on Crate. We both agreed that we're friends. If that bums you out, I don't know if you're pro Finn and Rose. I don't really ship anyone, to be honest with you. Do I? But yeah, in this book that takes place right after The Last Jedi, they are only friends. Now, if that does kind of bum you out, upset you, if you've read the Spark of Resistance book, which I understand if you haven't, because I learned after I read it thinking, wow, this is really, really bland, that it's for 8 to 12-year-olds, and it's about 200 pages. No wonder there were no orgies. But in Spark of Resistance, you can definitely tell there is something going on between Finn and Rose, and that book takes place after Resistance Reborn, which is the book I'm talking about right now, just in case you forgot. There's a lot of resistance in the titles, so I'm not saying that because you're dumb. I'm saying that because I have to remind myself to make sure I'm saying it correctly, because it's resistance, 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 and it's like, Jesus Christ. So it definitely seems by the time of that book, which is after this book, that they are together. So don't read Resistance Reborn and think, oh shit, they're just friends, they're not gonna get together. Unless you're anti-Finn and Rose, then don't read Spark of Resistance. You're not gonna like it. Some other fun things that we get in this book, a lot of connections to other canons, such as we go to Braca, and if you've been following Jedi The Fallen Order, that game coming out this month, that's the planet that Cal Kestis is living on after Order 66, so it was cool to see that planet, even if we didn't see him. Obviously, 2 different times. We got to see a ex-Imperial warlord who I actually really liked. I liked Yama more, and I'm interested to see the ex-Imperial warlord and Yama team up to do stuff. I think it would be the cutest team ever. We went to Corellia, and the First Order has occupied it. The citizens there have pretty much just given in, though they have an illusion of freedom. Corsac does think that, oh, okay, we're in charge, though they do kind of bow to it. But the First Order is using the planet to create all the ships that they need to conquer the galaxy. So I would imagine after this novel, especially with what happened, the First Order is going to squeeze even tighter on that planet. I would say something that's a big bummer in this novel is, despite them pulling together a lot of other canon, like from Battlefront 2, from Jedi Fallen Order, or at least the planet that's featured, and the comics, they don't really pull in some other characters from canon that you would expect, and for it to be a cool way of meshing together. So I feel like that was a missed opportunity. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed the book. Again, not the best, not the worst. I'd say 7 out of 10. Pretty good. But if you've read it, let me know what you think in the comment section down below.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe for more Star Wars videos.